Hello, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. My name is John Flynn, and thank you so very much for listening to Hooked on Sports today. Whether you're listening the night before on Thanksgiving Eve, or whether you're listening on Thanksgiving Day itself. So we have a packed show for you today. So remember, with this podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasting streaming services, and it's going to be things and all of that. So for today's episode, we are just going to go right into the Thanksgiving games. It is going to be a terrific slate of games, and there's going to be those with playoff implications. Since my time on this podcast today is a little bit short, well, we are just going to we're just going to pull up the spreads here, and they're to the right of your screen if you're watching this on YouTube, and we're just gonna go into it. So last week I went 9-5 picking the game straight up. I'm now 112, 65-1 overall on the season. And then against the spread, I went 7-7 last week, and I am now 83-95 overall on the season. So we have some great games for you. We got three games on Thanksgiving. We got another game on Black Friday, and then we have 10, 11 games on Sunday, and then of course the Monday night game. So let's get to it. We're starting with the Lions playing their traditional Thanksgiving Day game. They are favored by 2.5 points, taking on the Green Bay Packers on Thursday. That's a 1 p.m. Eastern game. A change from the original 12:30 start. So I'm going to I'm going to pick the Packers to win the game. And yeah, the Lions got some big news that their All Pro center Frank Ragnow is coming out of retirement, and he'll be working his way back to the Lions in their pursuit of a championship, which is obviously huge news. I think it's going to be a morale boost for the Lions, but and to the Lions' credit, with the comeback against the Giants was great, but they need to get things figured out with their defense, or else they're not going to be able to win a championship this year. And the Packers have been playing some pretty good football of late, so I'm going to pick the Packers to win. I don't feel great about it, but the Packers have always played well when they've played Thanksgiving games in Detroit. So I'm picking the Packers to win the game by a score of 26-23. So the next game is actually my pick for game of the week, and in a normal week, I would say this is what to look out for, for the game, but this is a monster game, huge playoff implications for both teams. We got the Kansas City Chiefs. They are 3.5 point road favorites in Dallas, taking on the Dallas Cowboys, and look, I think the Cowboys are starting to are playing right now with a lot of confidence. I think Dak Prescott has the quarterback advantage. So in this game, because I think what he's been able to do over the last couple of weeks has been dynamite for the Cowboys, who threw for 354 yards and two touchdowns on Sunday in their comeback victory against the Eagles. And George Pickens had 146 of those yards in the victory. So I think the Cowboys are actually right now a better team right now than Kansas City. I felt there was some flukishness from the result in the Kansas City Indianapolis game. So I actually think the Cowboys are going to win. So upset special, and I don't think it's going to be that close. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win by a score of 27-17 over the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday. And now the primetime game. This is going to be a big one. We got the Baltimore Ravens. They are at home. They're favored by 7 points. They have won five straight, looking to extend their winning streak to six, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow back in the lineup as the starting quarterback. This is truly a coin flip type of game here. I'm grabbing the points with the Bengals. Don't misinterpret. I feel like I feel like Cincinnati +7 is a better bet right now in this one. So we have that. But I just don't trust the defense enough to make the big stop at the end of the game. So I'm gonna take the Ravens to win 31-26. I think big game for Jamar Chase. No T Higgins in this game, which I think is a big deal. So it's gonna be up to guys like Andre Joseph to step up. I picked him up on my fantasy team this week, so trying to see if he's a good fit into my lineup. But I'm going to pick the Ravens to win by a score of 31-26 over the Bengals. Now, the Black Friday game on Amazon Prime, we got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Chicago Bears. The Eagles are favored by 7 points in this game, which is crazy for a couple of 8-3 teams. But look, the Bears are one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL, and I know, and I do not believe the Bears are as good as their record indicates. So, in fact, per Aaron Schatz of FTN Fantasy, the Bears have the worst DVOA ever. Since that stat started being tracked in 1978, among teams that started 8-3 or better. So there's a lot of flukiness with this Bears team. They've won 6 one-possession games, but I think this is a get right game for Philadelphia with their run game. I think Saquon Barkley is going to run wild over this defense. I think big game for Jalen Hurts. I think big game for AJ Brown, trying to build off what he did on Sunday, which I think would be a huge boost for Philadelphia if they can get AJ Brown going. So I have Philly winning this game by a score of 30-16 on Friday afternoon. And remember, the Eagles are wearing their black jerseys, and the Eagles almost always do well in those jerseys. So I think Philadelphia wins and covers pretty convincingly. We got the LA Rams favored by 10.5 points in Carolina against the Panthers. And yeah, I think this is the best bet of the week. Yeah, I'm picking the Rams to win. I think they're going to cover. But nobody in the NFL is playing better right now than the Rams. And I think Carolina is going to start to take a bit of a hit because I guess they've been a nice story. That they started 6-5. They lost last week to San Francisco. What quite honestly was a winnable game for Carolina, given that Bryce Young that Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions. But yeah, the quarterback play from Carolina should be concerning. So I'm going to take the Rams to win this game 31-13 on Sunday. So this game is a tricky one to pick. The San Francisco 49ers are favored by 5.5 points on the road in Cleveland against the Browns. And Kyle Shanahan, as an offensive play caller, is 1-8 in his career against the Browns defensive coordinator as Browns defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, and Jim Schwartz loves to do a lot of blitzing here. But I'm going to take San Francisco for a couple of reasons. One, I think a lot of the Shedeur Sanders passing yards in the Browns' victory over the Raiders what was a result of all the missed tackles that the Raiders had on those short passes, which turned into big gains there. So I kind of do understand why ESPN's QBR's metric for Shedeur was that low. It's because he wasn't the one making the big throws. It was the skill players making things happen there. And secondly, I think that you still kind of have the quarterback advantage in this game. I'm not gonna lie. Brock Purdy has been bad, and now there's And now there might be some buyer's remorse in San Francisco if Brock Purdy can't deliver a championship to San Francisco, nor do I think he will. So that's gonna be a question of for the masses out in the Bay Area. But I think it's going to be an ugly game. This is going to be a low scoring game. I got to take that 49ers to win by a score of 14-10 over the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. We got the Indianapolis Colts. They're favored by 4.5 points at home, taking on the Houston Texans. And this was one of the more difficult games of the week for me to pick because that's because there are a lot of things to be encouraged about with the Texans. One, their defense has been playing at such a high level all season long, and they can theoretically beat anyone on any given Sunday. And I think that the Texans defense might be the best unit on the field on Sunday. But I think that I think they're the most overbet team of the week because a lot of the bets this week are on the Texans. Maybe with reason maybe the Colts are going to go on a collapse or they're finally facing some good teams and and the Kansas City game said, said that some maybe they're not as good as the record indicates. So I'm going to pick the Colts to win and cover. I just think the Colts defense matches up better with the Houston offense than the Houston defense does with Indianapolis. So I'm going to take the Colts to win this game by a score of 27-20. And I don't love this spread, but that's that I have to play, and that's the line I have to play. I have to deal with it. So good luck to me on that. The Miami Dolphins, they're favored by 5.5 points, taking on the New Orleans Saints, and I think the Saints are going to win this game outright. And look, I know the Saints lost by a lot to Atlanta, and it was definitely a disappointing effort all the way around by the Saints. But I think Tyler Shuck can be onto something here. Now, do I think Tyler Shuck is going to be you're going to be a top quarterback in this league at some point? No, but can he be serviceable enough? Where he can be in and not make the mistakes and make the throws needed to win games? Sure. And I think in this game, I think with Devin Neal coming in as the main starter for the Saints at running back, I think he's gonna have a big day because the Dolphins' run defense is dreadful. They almost lost to a dreadful Washington squad, in Madrid, Spain 2 weeks ago. And I feel more confident about the Saints than I do about the Dolphins. So yeah, upset special. Give me the Saints to win by a score of 20-16 over the Dolphins in Miami. The Atlanta Falcons, they are 2.5 point under favorites on the road in New York, taking on the Jets. And this is another type of game I would not touch. I'm going to pick the Jets to win because the Falcons are such an inconsistent team, and I don't think and the Jets, they've been playing better football though in the last month or so. So I'm gonna pick the Jets to win this game by a score of 17-16 over the Atlanta Falcons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are favored by 2.5 points at home, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I mean, I hopefully I learned my lesson from a couple of weeks ago, where I was keep picking the Cardinals to win games, but unfortunately, I'm out on the Cardinals. I was dead wrong that they need a new quarterback. They need a new head coach. And even though Baker Mayfield's not playing, they still have the quarterback advantage. I think, which is kind of crazy when you think about this. When you think about this ball game, And the Bucks are trying to get are they got their butts kicked by the Rams on Sunday night, so I think they're gonna try and work extra hard in practice this week just so they can get back on track here. So give me the Bucks to win this game by a score of 26-20 over the Arizona Cardinals. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they are favored by 6.5 points at home on the road in Tennessee, taking on the Titans. And so yeah, the Titans have been bad, but the Titans have covered the spread each of the last 2 weeks against the Texans and the Seahawks, two of the more decent teams in the league, and Jacksonville is another one that fits into that. And Cam Ward is actually playing some of his best football of the season in recent weeks. So I like the Titans at the plus 6.5, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going to make some big time throws late against the Titans' dreadful defense. So I've got the Jaguars win this game by a score of 30-27 over the Titans in Tennessee. This game was a tricky game for me to pick. The Seattle Seahawks are favored by 11.5 points, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, and this is really a coin flip game with the spreads here. But I'm going to lay the 11.5 points with the Seahawks, and yeah, they did not play great, but the level of play that's come out of the Vikings, and especially JJ McCarthy this week has just been bad. So undrafted QB Max Brosmer is going to start for the Minnesota Vikings this week. So I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win this game by a score of 28-16. The Chargers, they're 9.5 point favorites at home, taking on the Vegas Raiders. And so, yeah, the Chargers are coming off their bye week, but I just don't, I just can't trust the Chargers right now when they don't have either one of their starting tackles. And then their offensive line has been dreadful without Slater and as without Slater and Joe Alton there, and they got pummeled 35-6 by Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars before their buyout last week, and they'll be getting some guys back from injury over the course of the next couple of weeks, but I don't think it'll be enough for me to confidently pick to pick them against the spread. They'll win the game because the Raiders are bad, but I think in a divisional game like this, I got to grab the points with the Raiders. I'm going to take the Chargers to win, though, by a score of 17-10. The Buffalo Bills are on the road. They're favored by 3.5 points, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And finally, after 12 weeks, I finally figured out who the Pittsburgh Steelers are, and finally lined up into their patterns. That they win games at home. They don't. They're not a good road team. They're a better home team. And the Buffalo Bills, their roster is not particularly good. And I think the Steelers have a major coaching advantage. They have. I think I'm going to pick the team with the better coach and the team with the better defense this week. So I'm going to pick the Steelers in an upset special by a score of 26-23 over the Bills in the Steel City on Sunday, late Sunday afternoon into the evening. Sunday Night Football on NBC. The Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders. The Broncos are favored by 5.5 points. Both of these teams are coming off bye weeks last week, and I think Washington is fried, and I can't stress enough how much I love the Denver Broncos to win this game. No Jaden Daniels, still probably no Terry McLaurin either. And I just think it's going to be another horror show in Landover, Maryland on Sunday night. So give me the Broncos to win the game by a score of 37-20 over the Commanders. And finally, we got New England Patriots. They are favored by 7.5 points, taking on the New York Football Giants, and Jackson Dart cleared concussion protocol, giving him he hasn't cleared it yet, but he was a full participant in practice, clearing the way for him to potentially start on Monday night. But I'm going to pick the Giants to cover, and so what I said about the Bears being the worst DVOA team ever, of a team that started 8-3. Well, the Giants have the best DVOA ever from a team that started the season 2-10. So I'm going to grab the point to the Giants, but I'm going to pick the Patriots to win because the run defense of the Giants' run defense is deplorable, and Dexter Lawrence did not participate in practice today, which is kind of a problem. So I'm gonna pick the Patriots to win this game by a score of 26-24 over the New York Football Giants coming up on Monday night in Foxborough. So with that in mind, that's going to do it for this edition of Hooked on Sports. Thank you so very much for listening to this podcast, and I wish all of you a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. So I'll be back here next week to discuss everything that happened in the world of sports, the world of football. We got big college football action, as I mentioned on Tuesday's program. So I'll be back. I'll be back here next week to break everything down. So until then, this is John Flynn saying so long. I'll be back here on the podcast next week, and a happy Thanksgiving.